Academic. We've been having a series of web interactions these days, and we've got very positive responses for our interactions that we are doing. So thank you so much, everyone in United States who have taken out time and joining in. A very good morning to you all. Thank you so much, Nicole, who has taken out time and has joined in from Brazil. She is the expert panelist on our event today. So, well, this, as you can see, is about regions, 3 different regions that you could possibly recruit from. So before you start recruiting in any country or region, it is paramount to understand the education systems of that region. So in order to basically what we are trying to do today is we will learn a little bit about these three prominent countries, in fact, from these 3 regions. So the regions that we have picked up are Africa, Middle East, and Latin America. And naturally, there are multiple countries in these regions, but we have picked up 3 countries that we will be trying to study with respect to their education systems. South Africa is what we will take up from Africa, then UAE, United Arab Emirates, from the Middle East, and Brazil from Latin America. So as I mentioned, that the expert speaker that we have for this event is Nicole Frutuoso. She is joining us from Brazil, and she is the Global Guidance Coordinator at Colégio Planck. Thank you so much, Nicole, for joining in.
Thank you for having me.
Great. So we will, as we move forward, we will, of course, try and hear from Nicole. And there will be, of course, question and answers that we will be addressing, and we'll try to learn from her experience. All right. So we also have as my co-host Shaili Jain, who is the Recognition Service Manager at Pearson PT Academics. So thank you so much, Shaili, for joining in. All right. So now let me begin with today's topic. So what I'm trying to cover are primarily 4 areas for these 3 countries. So first, we will try to understand or just try to learn a little bit about some general statistics of these countries. Then we will try to see the K-12 breakup, the education, the school education system breakup of these 3 countries. Then a little overview about the higher education, and lastly, we will try to learn what or which are those bodies that are responsible for quality control in these countries. All right. Now, as you can see, the general statistics that I'm trying to cover or get from this, we would get an idea of the 3 countries. So what I'm trying to cover is population, the youth population, then the per capita income, and the compulsory age for education. So if we look at the population first, you can see Brazil, of course, leads. I mean, over 200 million people there, with, of course, South Africa having around over 55 million. And, of course, UAE is close to 10 million. As far as the youth population is concerned, again, Brazil leading there as well, over 67 million. And the youth population is 15 to 34 years age that we are talking of. And South Africa has a little over 20 million there, and nearly 1.5 million people in this category in UAE. However, as far as the gross national income per capita is concerned, the UAE is way ahead. As you can see, that it is over $75,000. PPP is the purchasing power parity, so it's over $75,000 in UAE. So this only means that they have the capacity to spend and explore opportunities. And then, of course, Brazil and South Africa, as you can see, are close, but then South Africa is leading with nearly close to $16,000. And of course, Brazil is a little over $13,000. Now, if we talk of the compulsory education, as you can see, it is compulsory as far as South Africa is concerned. It is compulsory up to grade 9, that is between 6 to 15 years. Then if we talk of UAE, it is compulsory up to the age of 18 or grade 12. And if we talk of Brazil, it is 17. Now, the language of instructions, well, as far as South Africa is concerned, English and Afrikaans are the main two languages. But of course, there are 11 official languages that are used over there, but these two being the primary. Similarly, there are two primary languages in UAE, Arabic and English, and Brazil has Brazilian and Portuguese. Now, the departments that are responsible for education primarily for UAE and South Africa are Ministry of Basic Education and Higher Education and Training. And as far as Brazil is concerned, there are three primary ones: the National Education Council, the Ministry of Education, and Department of Higher Ed. Now, the academic years are slightly varying. As you can see, for South Africa, it's January to December. For UAE, is from September to June. And for Brazil, it is February to December. All right. Now, now let's see what this K-12 education breakup has for us as far as these countries are concerned. So let's first talk about the primary education, which primarily, is up to the preparatory level, so to say. So the primary education, as far as South Africa is concerned, is spread over 6 years, and 6 years is the compulsory school age, so to say. And now the foundation phase is, as you can see, spread for 4 years, so which is up to grade 3. And then you have an intermediate phase, which is again for 3 years, and it is up to it's between grade 4 to 6. As far as UAE is concerned, the starting age is 4 to 5. That is, of course, the kindergarten. Then you have primary, which is between 6 to 12, and it spreads over 6 years. And then you have the preparatory, which is 3 years, and it is between 12 to 15. Then if we talk of Brazil, then so until this is from 2006, the duration is 12 years now. I think it was 11 earlier, so it has now been extended to 12, and that's ever since the National 10-year Education Plan has come into place. Then it includes both primary school and general secondary school. And as you can see, it's it has its regional names as well. Then 9 years of primary education is basically compulsory between the age group of 6 to 14. And of course, this does not include the kindergarten. However, a very recent development in India talks about inclusion of kindergarten as well. So that's a very, very recent development. We have come up with the National Education Policy 2020. So that's the development that we have as far as India is concerned. But here, as we can see, that is not part of compulsory education. Then, as you can see, that there is an end of program certificate awarded as well. All right. Then moving further, now the secondary education, as far as South Africa is concerned, it consists of two phases. One is the senior phase, which is between grade 7 to 9, and at the end of this, the pupil or the student is no more required to continue with school. Then, but after that, there is an option for further education and training, which is called FET, which is the FET phase, which is between grades 10 to 12. Then, if we talk of UAE, there is a secondary school, and also there is a category of technical secondary schools. So the secondary school is spread over 3 years, and it is between 15 to 18 years, and you get a secondary school leaving certificate. And as far as the technical secondary school is concerned, it is spread over 6 years, and it is between 12 to 18 years, and you are awarded a technical secondary diploma. Then, as far as Brazil is concerned, there are some secondary schools that require a senior secondary entrance examination as well. Then, and the senior school or senior secondary school is spread over 3 years. And at the end of this, you are awarded a certificate. And this certificate, allows the pupils, to take the entrance examination for their higher education. All right. So in some countries, and you can see that here I am, as far as vocational education is concerned, South Africa and Brazil are the countries that have those options. You would not find options for vocational education in UAE. So we would only be talking about these two countries as far as vocational education is concerned. So as far as South Africa is concerned, at the upper secondary, I mentioned about the further education and training part. I'm sorry. So the students can have basically two options. One is the general secondary education, and you are able to acquire this national senior certificate, and the other is the vocational secondary education. Then, sorry. So FET also includes vocational programs within secondary education, and the students, these are the possible options of colleges that they can take up: technical colleges, community colleges, and private colleges, and they can take up this from these colleges. And as far as Brazil is concerned, the secondary vocational education is a new system of basically vocational education that was introduced by LDB in 1996, and it has 3 levels. One being basico, which does not require any entrance exam. Then the second is secondary vocational education, is spread over 1 to 3 years, and then secondary vocational and general education, which is spread over 3 to 4 years. There is also an option for adult education, which is basically secondary school diploma. That is what you can acquire at that level. Now, as far as the higher education is concerned, we have, as far as South Africa is concerned, well, there are 3 types or categories of higher educational institutions that are available. One being universities, second, comprehensive universities, and the third is a separate category of universities of technology. Well, to all our viewers, I would like to tell you that we will share a detailed document along with this presentation for those who could not make it, and also for those who are attending. Along with this presentation, a video recording and this presentation, we would also share a detailed document, with respect to these education systems of these three countries. Now, as far as UAE is concerned, there are three categories: public, private, and global partnerships. In fact, the UAE government, encourages. They already have a lot of partnerships with US institutions, and they are already in existence. Then, as far as Brazil is concerned, as far as with respect to the higher education, you have 245 public institutions and over 2,000 private, and of course majority of the students are in the private institutions. And these are the two levels, of course, the undergrad and the postgrads. This is what the terminology is. And as far as public institutions, they are spread over the entire country, and they are established by either the federation or the individual states or even municipalities. And of course, the main areas that you would find these institutions is the southeast region of Brazil, which is Sao Paulo and Rio de Janeiro. All right. Now, the fourth part that I wanted to cover was, the institutions that are responsible for those quality checks in these countries. As far as South Africa is concerned, you have the Council on Higher Education, you have Quality Council for Trade and Occupations, and you have an institution named Umalusi. Then, as far as UAE is concerned, the Abu Dhabi Department of Education and Knowledge, ADEC, then the Dubai Education Council, and the Sharjah Education Council, and the UAE Ministry of Education pretty much is responsible for the quality checks at the various levels. As far as Brazil is concerned, the Brazilian Ministry of Education is responsible for quality assessment, and you have for the graduate level programs or the undergraduate level programs, you have CONAS, and I think Nicole will be able to correctly pronounce these. If I'm not wrong, Comissão Nacional de Avaliação do Ensino Superior. All right. And as far as the postgraduate programs are concerned, it is Coordenação de Aperfeiçoamento de Pessoal de Nível Superior. And there is another body which is acronymed as INAID, so it is a survey basically that is conducted when students join the university and once they finish with their studies. So now I would like Nicole to take up the floor, and there are some questions that I have for her. Firstly, of course, if she could shed some light on the educational system in Brazil in general, then I would also want you to maybe talk about any recent proposals or anything that is in pipeline, as far as revamping of the education system in Brazil is concerned. And then what are the interest levels of Brazilian students as far as higher education is concerned? I mean, what is the interest level as far as their interest in US higher education is concerned? And if there are any specific areas, that they look for. So now the floor is all yours, Nicole.
Okay, great. So Brazilian education has changed a lot in the last decade, and there are some significant changes scheduled to go into effect by 2022. In general, the focus in Brazil has always been on the 245 public institutions. A very small percentage of Brazilians are able to get into those universities, and those universities, the only criteria used for entrance to the university and to a specific major is a high-stakes competitive exam. Over the last decade, the many vestibulares, the many entrance exams for at least all of the federal universities and many of the state universities have been condensed into the Enem exam, which happens every February, although this year it will be postponed to March. So the goal, you go through your 12 years of public or private school, and then you sit the exam. Brazil also has a long tradition of something called cursinho, or postgraduate years, where students will continue to repeat their senior year as they continue to sit the exam to get into the right university and the right major. If you decide to switch majors, you need to leave the university and prepare for the exams again and sit the exam to try for a different school or even a different major within the same school. Many of the professions in Brazil are extremely protected by unions, and you must have a degree in the area to work in the area. So to switch from being a biologist to being a pharmacist, you can't just necessarily go to graduate school. You have to go all the way back to the beginning and redo a second undergraduate degree. So a lot of people who are in the private university system are people who are doing second degrees due to change in career. So there is absolutely no flexibility within the education system. One of the biggest changes over the last decade has been the move to implement racial quotas and quotas for public school students. So traditionally in Brazil, you would go to a private, if you have any money at all, your parents would invest in private education for K through 12 with the hopes of getting you into a tuition-free public university. And so the university started to implement laws on the federal level, reserving spots for people from public high schools and reserving racial quotas. Brazil is 50% Black, but many of the most competitive university courses were at most 1% Black. So we've seen laws implemented that have forced the universities to have a racial representation equal to the population of their states. That and the spots reserved for public universities have pushed many students who are for public high schools, have pushed many students in the private school system out of spots, and we're seeing an increasing number of very posh, elite, high-cost private higher education institutions, either partnered with American institutions or based on American institutions, kind of springing up in Rio and Sao Paulo to take some of that overflow. But we're also seeing a huge demand in international education for these students who have been pushed out of their spots. Also, as these students get pushed out, as more diversity is brought into the universities, there is unfortunately, although all data shows the contrary, a belief among Brazil's middle and upper class that university quality is going down in the public universities. So students who can afford it, and Brazil is extremely socially stratified, so there are plenty of kids who can afford it, are looking at going outside of the country to continue their education. Brazilian high schools have zero flexibility as of now. There are 14 subjects you must take for all 3 years, and those 14 subjects are the ones that will fall on the national exam. School is usually 5 hours a day. If you do a technical school, which are very competitive to get into, they are public, require a test, and students will usually have to go back and repeat the 9th grade to get in, because you can only get in 9th grade and you must resit the test until you pass. But other than that, it's all standardized until 2022. So as of 2022, the Brazilian National Core Curriculum, which is the standardized curriculum all schools must use, is changing to be 60% mandatory, 40% electives. And many of these electives, a portion of these electives can be taught online in different formats. So we're interested to see how the e-learning produced by coronavirus is going to shape Brazilian high school as of 2022, now that we get this new flexibility. So there will be new flexibility. There are 3 tracks proposed that students can funnel themselves into based on their college aspirations, and then the college tests will be modified to reflect this change in curriculum. Some of the most popular areas that students look for are engineering. Brazilians are increasingly understanding that business is a respectable degree. However, in Brazil, business in public universities has not been a traditionally approved degree. A business degree in Brazil historically was much more like an associate's in the US, or like preparing you to do secretarial work rather than preparing you to become an entrepreneur or to run a business. So a lot of Brazilians will ask for in universities about their engineering degrees or their production engineering degrees when they're really looking for something that will prepare them to work in banking or management or marketing. So that's a huge difference that's slowly starting to change with this rise in private schools. And we're starting to see more students interested in and knowing that they're interested in doing business abroad. I would say the 4 biggest courses of interest abroad are engineering, business, economics, and political science or international relations. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Nicole, for that insightful talk. And I would encourage people to ask questions if they have anything in mind. And while I request you to type in your questions in the chat box. Please note that for all the attendees, there would be a free scored practice test voucher that from Pearson that will be shared with you. And of course, to stay in touch and stay connected and getting those updates, you are most welcome to join us on Facebook, like us on Facebook, and please join our Facebook group as well. And so we have a question from Monica. She asks, what do students in Brazil, or rather, why do students in Brazil choose to study abroad? And what is the motivation behind that decision? So,
to understand why students want to study abroad, we have to understand how public higher education in Brazil is funded. So the majority of the funding comes from either CAPS or from one of the FAPs, which are state-funded research institute foundations. So they get a % of the state budget to invest in research. The only reason, or the main reason, for public institutions to exist is to train professors and teachers and to prepare high-level researchers. That's kind of the mission statement of both CAPS and the FAPs. So when students attend school in Brazil, they're entering a system that is not designed at all to prepare them for the job market. They're entering an institution that is training them to be a very high-level researcher. You're going to conferences and preparing to write papers, and you have to have a significant senior thesis as part of your undergraduate degree in Brazil. And so students are looking abroad to get more practical experience, help with internships, kind of a more open education, and also flexibility. A lot of students in Brazil like the fact that, particularly in the US, they can go in slightly undecided or change your mind. If you go into a Brazilian institution to study biochemistry and then decide you want to study chemistry, you have to go back to the beginning. So about 33% of students who actually make the very difficult cut and get into public institutions have to start over, and they lose a lot of time. The exams are also becoming more and more rigorous with diversity. So, and the diploma is worth less in terms of pedigree right now in Brazil than it historically has been. So having a foreign degree brings prestige, experience, and flexibility in the case of the US. And many systems in Latin America are somewhat similar to Brazil. Even if you look at Portugal and Spain, where the systems came from, they're extremely exam-based, limited to the major, and very not flexible in the majority. So.
All right. So, yeah. So the other question that we had, I mean, you have already addressed our other education systems in Latin America, somewhat similar to Brazil. So, yeah, do we have any more questions? All right. So, as I had mentioned even earlier, that we will be sharing the detailed the details of this presentation along with the recording of this presentation with the attendees and also those who could not, who did register and who could not attend. So, thank you so much for taking out time. Thank you so much, Nicole, for joining in from Brazil. And thank you everyone who has joined in from United States. So it was great having you on board, and thank you so much for your time.
Hi,
All
can I
right.
answer the last question?
Yeah, there's another question. So are students who choose to study abroad mostly in international schools?
No, historically, that kind of was it, because the international schools do not prepare for the Brazilian national exam. If you do the IB curriculum, you are not getting into Brazilian university without several postgraduate years to prepare for entrance. So traditionally, the international schools sent more kids abroad. But with this shift, we're seeing an increasing number of students from Brazilian national universities interested in going abroad. And it's interesting because universities, they want to try to focus on where the international schools are and focus on Rio, Sao Paulo, and Brasilia. But a lot of the demand and the students you're going to want to go to the US and the students who have budgets to go to the US are in other regions. So at the beginning, we mentioned how the universities are highly concentrated in Rio and Sao Paulo. You have all the best public universities and the best private universities without leaving your house. If you go to school in Fortaleza in the extreme north, or you go to school in the extreme south, somewhere like Londrina, you are going to need to leave home. You probably have been planning your entire life to go to Sao Paulo or Rio, which are pretty dangerous and on par with New York in terms of living expenses for universities. So the families have budgets. These kids are very capable. I've seen many of the more competitive schools, and in some of these bigger capitals like Fortaleza or Bahia, you have boarding schools that attract kids from all of the different small towns, and their SAT scores are somewhere in, the 1400s, especially in the math. These kids are really good, really talented, and have good budgets, but they tend to get overlooked. So Brazil's been doing a very good job. International ACAC has been doing a very good job with a lot of outreach, making sure that public school or private school counselors in the national curriculum schools are getting involved. And with internet recruiting and with webinars, we know it might not be easy for you to physically go to the Amazon, but using Education USA and targeting the top private schools, you'll be able to see a much larger market of kids who are interested in going abroad, but who don't always get enough attention and enough experience or contact with an exposure from the universities to make that decision. So there's a huge unexplored market that I wish more people would pay attention to. And I'm hoping that with coronavirus, we're able to leverage this technology and reach out and get to these students, because there is huge and increasing demand. My school is not in Sao Paulo. It is 90 minutes north, where we make Embraer airplanes. Our cost of living is 60% of what it is in Sao Paulo or less. And our salaries are on par. So our parents have a much higher disposable income than a lot of parents in Sao Paulo, suffering under a very high cost of of living. So it's important to kind of get out and see more of Brazil, even virtually, and recruit the talent that is there, because there is a huge market. And sometimes I hear universities say they go to Sao Paulo, they go to Rio, they go to the 5 international schools, and I can't get any students because we're hundreds of universities competing for 200 students. But the country has 211 million people, and there's huge potential.
All right. So thank you so much once again, Nicole, for joining in. It was a pleasure having you on board and interacting with you. And thank you, everyone, once again for joining in. And I think we do not have any more questions. So, well, a warm goodbye, and hopefully we will catch up soon.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. Take care.